All right, everybody. Hello and welcome. You are here for How to Land a Job in 2025. My name is Albert. I am the founder of Albert's List. And today we're going to talk about the job search as it relates this year and what's going to be important about it as we look to the months ahead. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function. I will be monitoring that throughout the entire webinar tonight and hope to answer your questions as I go through the evening. This webinar will also be recorded and the presentation will also be made available on SlideShare. The recording itself will be on our YouTube channel, which you'll have a chance here to access in a bit. So please use all those functions provided, and we will have a really good hour ahead to do all the things that we want to do and talk about the job search here in 2025. It's good to have you all here in the webinar chat. If you are chatting in the webinar chat here, please go ahead, share your LinkedIn, tell us where you're dialing in from. We always have a global audience here on Albert's List. And also be sure to use the everyone dropdown. We do have one that's just for hosts and panelists. If you do hosts and panelists, you will only go to me. And I would love for all of you to meet each other, collaborate, say hello, and be supportive to one another in your job hunt. All right, so without further ado, who am I? So if you've discovered me for the very first time, if you found me off of Facebook, Eventbrite, Meetup, or any of the other places that we may have posted this job or posted this event, I am a San Francisco Bay Area born and raised job search entrepreneur and product marketing manager. I'm the founder of Albert's List. We're a community of 50,400 people on Facebook, connecting job seekers, hiring managers, job opportunities, and networking. We describe ourselves as a job search and AI and side hustle skills company. And so you're going to discover what we do in every single little bit of that today. And we're going to talk through what types of resources are available as you begin the year here in 2025. If you would like to join Albert's List, point your phone to the QR code here on screen or go to the link. We'll have QR codes for pretty much everything that you can access today, and that'll give you an opportunity to, instead of typing in feverishly, just point your phone at the page and you'll be able to go to that very link that it's going to. So our agenda today is we're going to talk about some things that are important and dear to us, especially since we're in the job market. We're going to start with the state of the job market and where things stand. Tomorrow, as we all know, is a big day for the job market because it is the jobs report for December 2024, which is going to show us how the last year went, and it's going to give us a neatly wrapped bow on the state of the job market overall. And so we're going to have data on that when we get that data at 5:30 a.m. Pacific, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Then we're going to move into some predictions for 2025. It's always the beginning of the year. Predictions are probably good through the month of April, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, we have a new president coming in here in about 12 days, 11 days. And so that's going to bring some interesting changes potentially to how the job market functions and how the job market works. It may or may not impact you depending on what. And then we're going to talk about what changes about the job market and considerations. And that's going to be 10 steps and 10 ways that you can take to make your job search better. And it's going to be tips and actions that you can take that are going to make a difference. And then we're going to give you an opportunity to take some action. There's a couple of free webinars that we have coming up. There is a chance to open up your wallet if you're looking to invest your money today in some job search programming. And then we'll also take your Q&A at the very end. So our goals for today's webinar are pretty simple. I want to provide you a 50,000 foot view of the job market and zoom in, give you some predictions along the way, and give you some ideas and expectations for what lies ahead in this year. I'm grateful that you're decided to spend this next hour with me. You have many and content, job search content and career content avenues that you can take at any given time, whether it's a recorded YouTube video or many of the other content creators and analysts out there. And I'm grateful you decided to spend that time here. I want to leave you empowered to embark on your job search. It's been a tough time for everybody out there. It's been a tough 2 years, especially if you've been in tech. And I want to give you at least a little bit of a roadmap that you can use so that as you enter here into the month of January, that you can take your job search to the next level and really get what you want out of it and be successful and finally land that position that maybe you've been looking for the last couple of months, or maybe as I've seen in the last couple of years. And then finally, I want to give you the resources to move forward with hope. Whether it's doing a mock interview, whether it's joining us for one of our upcoming boot camps, or whether it's doing some on-demand content where you can search and where you can learn about the career skills that you need on your own with the wide breadth of resources that we have here at Albert's List. And so first, I'm going to talk about the state of the job market. It's always important, as I say in every one of these webinars, to know where we've been coming from and know where we're going next, right? Because where we've been has been a very, very crazy place, and where we go next is going to say a lot about what exactly we're going to feel as we go into the job search this year. And we're going to start with a chart that has all become a little bit too familiar for a lot of us over the last couple of years. This is the layoff chart since the beginning of 2020, right before we entered into COVID and then went into what we called the Great Resignation, and then starting in Q2 of 2022, and really making it all the way into about Q3 of last year, the ridiculous amount of layoffs that we've seen. All in all, we've probably had about 500,000 tech workers laid off, and that just includes overall layoffs. It does not include people whom I've seen in our Facebook group that have been laid off two or three times in one calendar year. And it's a lot of whiplash for a lot of people, and it's unfortunate. But this is the state of things, and the next couple of slides are sort of going to explain why that's been the case. The first reason of why that's been the case is not necessarily evident of the industry at large, but just overall the unemployment rate. And so this isn't necessarily related, but what's important to note here is the unemployment rate, right? So unemployment has been steadily falling since the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, or at least in, literal terms, and has been hovering in very, very healthy areas for the past really like 2 years. It's even gone as low as 3.4% and has recently ticked up to 4.2% as of really last month. We're going to see what the actual number is tomorrow, and so that's going to be very interesting to gauge uh, long term what the long term health of the economy might be. And so the reason why the employment rate has remained low is because the job market as a whole has remained strong. If you're in tech, you're probably hearing that and you're saying, what are you talking about? And the truth of the matter is, tech and really information jobs in general over the last couple of years have been in their own recession, while healthcare, government, retail, food establishments have all seen their jobs increase. So it's definitely been, in some sense, a canceling out. And in particular in tech, it may have also canceled out too, because a lot of new industries such as AI have come online to help pick up workers that have otherwise been laid off. But there's also a reason why that's not necessarily happening, and you'll also see that in the predictions. So, what we've seen too here is where we've come from is that there have been a lot of major layoffs since the beginning of COVID. And I know COVID seems like a long time ago, and we're talking about chicken flu now and all these other things. But COVID was a main disruptor, and the result of it coming back from COVID also was a big disruptor because the Fed has raised interest rates, which makes money a lot more expensive to borrow, which in turn has caused a lot of tech companies to do a lot of big layoffs. And these are the biggest layoffs that we've seen really since the beginning of 2020. And you can see that some of these have happened in the last 6 months. Most of them have happened, pretty much all of them have happened in the last 2 years. And with the biggest ones being Intel, Tesla, and Meta twice to a tune of 21,000 employees in total. Where are the jobs? As I mentioned in the previous slide, we're looking at healthcare and social assistance, leisure and hospitality, government, and professional and business services increasing in the last month. Information is a big fat zero here, the third from the bottom. And those tend to be the jobs that many of the folks that are on Albert's list serve. Of course, if you're in another industry, I'm happy to see in the chat where you're dialing in from and what industry you're dialing in from and the sentiment of it, because it's always interesting to see how other industries are doing. Healthcare, as you know, has also been growing steadily and consistently since the beginning of not actually since the beginning of the pandemic, but since before even the Great Recession was going on. I'm the kind of geek that has gone back to jobs reports from actually not 19, but 2006 and 2007. And while everything was hemorrhaging jobs at that time, it was healthcare and social assistance that were increasing the most. And so if you're looking for a new career to go into that seems like it'll be stable for the next 10 to 15 years, going into healthcare might actually be the move to make. And so that's always been an interesting chart to see. If you're in tech, the news is not as great as you just saw, where there was a +0 on the professional services line and a plus 26,000 on the on the information line was +0, and the professional services line was plus 26. But if you're in tech, you also know that tech seems to be leaving California. And this is the chart that came out last month, just showing how many of these jobs have left California since the beginning of 2020. And if you're pointing at home and you're scoring at home, basically we're back to where we were in terms of the quantity of jobs in 2011, 2012. So it doesn't look really great. And, we're seeing a continued exodus. Yesterday, Mark Zuckerberg of Meta announced that he would be taking a lot of content moderation jobs out of California and into Texas for both political and business reasons. And so we're seeing this continued drop off um, in tech jobs here. And so if you're in the Bay Area, if you're in Silicon Valley, especially since Albert's list is California based, it is becoming pretty daunting just to see how few jobs there are for the amount of people who are looking around here. And so if you're looking to greener pastures for tech jobs, places like Texas, Florida, the Southeast, and even the East Coast, and also the Southwest may be better places to go if you're going to find those opportunities now. And you know what? The numbers are similar here in the San Francisco Bay Area for the folks who are here locally. As you can see, there was that whole spike in jobs from the mid 2020 to 2021, 2022 range, but those have continued to drop over the last few months. And it's going to be interesting to see where this goes in 2025. We're also facing the prospect of a presidential change in, well, 11 days. And so Donald Trump won the election back in November. He is going to take office on December 20th. And along with that, because we've seen a change in power now, the uncertainty that we saw in 2024 in terms of who would take power next is now certain. And so companies are understanding where things are moving forward. And this is going to actually contribute to a lot of the predictions that we're going to make in the next set of slides from a business standpoint, at least. So I'm not going to be political. We try not to be political here. And so I try to stick with this from a job search standpoint and how Donald Trump is going to impact your job search. And this is something we're going to be tracking for the next 4 years of his presidency. We do monthly webinars also on the state of the job market and the state of inflation. And this is going to be a topic that I watch a lot for as we move into the coming months. So one of the other things that has also mattered lately is inflation. Inflation and the employment market are closely correlated because a lot of companies borrow money to innovate. They borrow money to hire in hopes of getting that ROI back. And inflation and interest rates are both very important because they impact how much a company pays to borrow money from the bank so that they can fund whatever investments they may have. And so the higher that interest rates go, the higher chance of unemployment because unfortunately companies need to shutter projects that aren't doing well, or they need to find ways to uh, or they need to shutter projects that aren't doing well, or they need to go ahead and really consolidate their investments as well as their operations. And so, as has been the case, we've seen a lot of unemployment happen in the tech industry because you've seen a lot of companies who are depending on that investment in tech to pan out over a longer year period, but it's not going to happen. So projects like flying cars, for example, which would take maybe 20 years to occur, will go away because it is no longer tenable for companies to pay that high of an interest rate for that to make sense. Next thing, of course, as you know, AI is always on the minds of people who are looking into the job market. AI, as you know, has become really big over the last couple of years with the launch of ChatGPT and the entire AI ecosystem. And so AI is projected to possibly disrupt up to 300,000 jobs over the next 10 to 15 years, according to some studies, including those from Goldman Sachs. And the jobs that don't necessarily get impacted are those that require face-to-face contact, jobs that are in hospitality, and jobs that require a lot of human work versus the ones that maybe can be automated, such as those in tech, robotics, and also repeatable tasks. Layoffs, of course, continuing to happen. This is actually graphics from last month. Today's graphics include job cuts from Microsoft, job cuts from other tech companies, and so that train keeps on going. So what do we end up with here? When I look at forward forecasts, it's very interesting because there's really what I would say a lot of uncertainty ahead. Trump ran on a lot of what I would consider to be populist issues, and those issues didn't necessarily translate into a full-on policy discussion. And so we're going to see a lot of development of what those policies may look like once he gets into office, and it's going to be an interesting roller coaster while we get there. The downstream effects for job seekers are going to be interesting too, because it may be everything from more jobs to potentially fewer jobs, to jobs in other fields that are going to be impacted specifically. So we're going to cover those opportunities in the next few slides. Interest rates as a whole appear to be ebbing. It was said that if maybe Harris had won, that we would see a steady downward cutting of interest rates through the remainder of 2025. It is now seen that maybe because inflation is ticking back up and staying steady, that interest rates will stay where they are. And unless something extremely bad happens, we're not going to get a Fed cut to completely zero. And so, yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. AI remains hot and the information recession will continue. To me, I think that if I see where things might get better, my hope is this spring, just as we see things clear up, policies get created, and then we understand how business will move forward. But overall, if your job search remains to be a struggle, I want to remind you that it's not entirely you. But there are going to be ways around it, and we're going to talk about after this next section that we're going into. So the next section we're going into here is predictions for 2025. In terms of predictions for 2025, these are just some of the forward-looking projections that I think are going to be on top of mind for the next 12 months, maybe 12 to 18 months. And here are some considerations as we go through it. Number one is that political downwinds do matter, but we're going to try my best. I'm going to try my best not to get political. If you want to be political in the webinar chat, you are more than welcome to do so, but please keep it nice because everyone's got different thoughts and we do also have an international audience. Number two is that change takes a while to happen, and it's going to show up when you least expect. So there will be downstream impact here in terms of all the policies that do get created. And it's also going to be important to know that even after the policies are created, it's going to take maybe 2 to 3 years for the full effect to take place. One example for that is Biden's infrastructure law. We still have money moving through the economy right now as we speak, with projects being given out and so forth about 2 years after that law was signed. Number three is that some things will remain the same, but the fundamentals are still key. And this is probably the most important one. And I think about this one often because I think about how the job search has changed. I'm told by a lot of job seekers that the job search has changed and it's tremendously different. And to some degree, it has. It is harder to find a job these days, but also means that a lot of things that haven't changed are still more important than ever. And that includes everything from networking to being able to write a solid resume to being able to interview really, really well. And those are things that no matter what job search you're in and no matter the state of the economy, you have to be good at. The fourth point is that much of these trends are US based, but also may apply in some cases internationally. So, for those of you who are dialing in from Australia, from Canada, from Europe, even at this hour, realize that some of the best practices that we offer here do have some geographic limitation, but what happens in the United States does impact the rest of the world, especially if you work for a global company. And so, let's see what the predictions are as we go ahead here. My first prediction is that tech jobs start a comeback, but with a big, big caveat. So, as many of you may or may not know, Trump has picked investor and podcaster David Sachs to be his crypto and artificial intelligence czar. He spent a significant amount of time um, on the AI, on the All In podcast over the last year, lamenting the lack of tech mergers and acquisitions, regulatory capture within the business, and also championing AI. David Sachs, as you know, may be most famous for getting acquired for his creation of the social networking tool Yammer, which is used by many Fortune 500 companies as their internal social network. And when I did this presentation last month, I didn't think that this would turn into something much bigger than it has, and it certainly has. And if you've spent any time on X over the last couple of weeks, you'll notice one thing that happened over the holidays was a huge discussion over H-1B visas. H-1B visas, as you know, are the visas that are given out to highly skilled workers to come over to the United States to perform tasks for jobs that may not otherwise be found in candidates here in this country, such as software engineering and data science and so forth. David Sachs and his all-in crew, plus some of the tech elite, have been getting roasted on X over the last couple of weeks in regards to the H-1B program and the return of tech, where a lot of people have criticized them for hijacking the Trump administration to get jobs where they may otherwise have hoped that maybe it would have been a reinvestment back into American workers. My belief that tech comes coming back with a caveat is that David Sachs knows how to read the tech market. He's been in the tech industry for a very long time, and a lot of the venture capitalists during this election went to Trump's side because they wanted to see a reinvigoration in the tech market. And so my belief is that we're going to see some loosening of that. It'll depend on what industries you're in. But you would also hope that the lowering of interest rates, which I think somebody like David Sachs will be encouraging highly, is going to make some difference in this. But overall, refocus back to tech where it had been a little bit lost over the last 2 years due to rising interest rates and a focus on infrastructure and other topics. The second prediction is kind of an obvious one, is that industry shifts are going to reflect a new administration's priorities. So one of the things that, we've seen during this election period was a focus on high energy costs. A crypto was definitely here. I'm a person who likes to collect election materials, and I had a friend from Pennsylvania send me election materials, and some of them included protecting the cryptocurrency industry. And then there's, of course, AI, which a lot of the tech entrepreneurs sided with Donald Trump on because they believed that he would loosen regulations so that could be more innovation and a lot more potential bending of the rules. And so we'll see where that goes. On the other hand, there are also going to be areas that will be less prioritized over the next few months. And these include electric vehicles and green technology. And those are going to take a backseat and struggle as tax credits expire, as a belief in oil and gas and other energy industries makes its comeback. And so when it comes to thinking about what you're going to do about your 2025 job search, it's important to choose wisely within the industries, especially if you choose to return to tech or something that could be potentially volatile and something that may not necessarily be strong over the next 4 years. Now, it may be also interesting that, for example, knowing that green technology might take a back seat over the next few years, that it may be interesting to also take on a job at a nonprofit that focuses on environmental issues, because those are going to be nonprofits that rake in a lot of money from donors who want to see a different future based on what they didn't expect to see coming out of an election and so forth. And those jobs might be lucrative because you may be paid more money to help figure out and fight for causes that people care about. Prediction number three is that regulations are loosened around AI, leading to more growth and also leading to a potential sooner destruction of the job market. So the Silicon Valley of the Trump administration extended into VCs, as I mentioned during the election, and the reason why is because you had investors here like Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, who are here to the left in this picture, donating to the campaign, knowing that they had investments in AI companies, and those investments weren't necessarily panning out because the Biden administration had made some regulatory declarations around artificial intelligence. And so, as Trump takes office on his first day, going to expect that some of these AI regulations are loosened. We see a very different approach towards ethical AI and ethical use of AI, and that may unleash more startup interest. It's going to unleash more venture capital money and ultimately lead to more growth within the industry as we currently see it. Now, of course, on the other hand, there has also been news, and I read a headline the other day saying that we've run out of AI or run out of data to train on AI. So who knows? Maybe we go down the path of more technology versus more model development. So, to get yourself ready for this, being knowledgeable about AI in both using it and being able to talk about it and being able to articulate what you think about AI is going to keep you ahead of the curve. Prediction number four is that localism reigns supreme as tariffs threaten to upend markets. And so this one's an interesting one because we don't quite know yet whether Donald Trump's threats of tariffs are real or not. There are a lot of companies that are already beginning to prepare for this future. And so it'll be interesting to see what that future necessarily means. But the overall notion is that tariffs and populist ideas mean a greater focus on the United States versus the global market, especially if you're in the physical goods industry or import and export. We're in a global market already, so if you're one of our friends here who's dialing in from an international locale like Canada or Europe or Australia, or maybe you're in Denmark and you're seeing that Trump wants to buy Greenland, all of these things may play a part in how you perceive the United States. And so if you're in the physical goods, if you're in manufacturing, if you are in e-commerce, you might be impacted as the price of goods go up, as the cost to ship them goes up. Prediction number five may be relevant to some of you, is that the state government jobs that pertain to the state government become more competitive as the federal apparatus shrinks. So President Trump appointed Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to DOGE, which is short for the Department of Government Efficiency, because there is a mandate and a belief that the government is way too large and that we need to shrink the size of government so that it can be more efficient and that we can either return some duties to the states or do away with some things altogether because we've become a country that doesn't necessarily want certain services and things of that sort. And even though ceremonial in nature, because Congress holds the budget, The job is going to seek to trim down government and do that by July 4th of 2026. And as a result, what I think is going to happen is that you're going to see a lot of government workers threatened by their employment and government workers who may feel like they may no longer have the ability to do what they need to do. And they're going to switch jobs. Or if you're a longtime government worker, they're going to go ahead and retire. And that's going to create both chaos in the government as well as a loss of, um, as well as a loss of, uh, as well as a loss of tribal knowledge for how the government works. And so, as that changes, I think you're going to see morale drop in certain government offices. And I think you're going to also see that a lot of people pursue state and city and county jobs instead in their respective states where they feel like they might be able to get more done. But brain drain. Thank you. Question, is the federal government too large? What about state governments and other apparatuses? I think I just answered that. I wouldn't be the one to say here whether the federal government is too large. It is not my opinion to make. I am just repeating the opinions of those who are now in office and may have a particular perspective of how they want to move forward and how it relates to the job market. All right, prediction number six is that labor issues are going to favor companies led by tax cuts and working reforms. So the incoming administration was definitely supported by rank and file labor, but may also pass unfriendly labor policies as they focus on giving tax cuts to the wealthy, to businesses, in the hopes that that money will trickle down to employees. Is that going to happen? It's not happened in, our recorded history before, but we're going to see. And we're going to see massive labor reforms like those of the National Labor Relations Board and other government labor organizations that now have Trump appointees within them. And we'll see where that goes. And so for you, it's important to know your state's labor laws. It's important to know what labor issues are. And if you are somebody who wants to be political, to also go and fight for those issues as you see fit. Prediction number seven is the one that we mentioned a little bit earlier, is that the immigration debate finds a voice as reform takes center stage. And so this is a two-pronged conversation. One being that we have undocumented immigrants and visa workers facing a lot of change coming January 20th, with some possibly being deported, while H-1Bs also facing greater scrutiny, given the debates that we've seen between the MAGA wing and the tech elite. Depending on who gets deported, you may also see inflation or higher wages in some areas, or worker shortages remain something that is very much a real impact when you have fewer workers doing very, very important jobs. Um, so will the attacks on labor hurt or help the non-labor management job market? Uh, I would say I would say less so on the non-labor management, individual contributor, corporate job market. But I bring it up because it's always something to consider. California has fairly strong labor laws. Other states, your labor laws really depend on where you are. And so it's just something to pay attention to, knowing how past Republican administrations would face out on things. Regarding labor changes, what changes do you think would happen? Minimum wage, etc. I would say that I would pay attention to things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. I would look at affirmative action at a state level to see if that holds up wherever it may. I don't think minimum wage is going up anytime soon, unfortunately. Even though a very, very small percentage of this country works on minimum wage in the United States at this point. So that's a United States point for those of you who aren't in the country. Minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. And then I would say that looking at potential reforms to Title IX and citizens and class and race-based things are also going to be on the table potentially. It's very hard to say because now that the Republican Party has won on a lot of cultural issues, we will see if those cultural issues translate into policy issues. And that's going to be something that I'm very interested to see over the next couple of months. Prediction number 8 is more of a reflection of the overall job market as AI takes hold. Is that strategic roles take precedence as commoditized jobs fall to AI and high costs, right? So salaries have continuously risen over the last couple of years as inflation rises. And one of the things that I've noticed that, is very much a pattern with AI is that AI tends to take over jobs that are very much repeatable tasks. Repeatable tasks being everything from graphic design to data analysis, to writing, even. Some of these are creative in nature. And so, if you have a job that is very repeatable, or if you have a job that you know that AI can do, there is a high possibility that your job is commoditized. And so, if your job is in that area, it's important to you to not only build your skills to competence, but then to also look at the whole view and look at the go-to market and not go to the look at the whole view and not just look at the go-to market, which is a very product marketing term to use here, but to look at a way where you can go and be strategic in your way of going to market with your job search, with your job skills. So, if you are somebody who is very early on in your career, that's the approach to take because it's going to change your career trajectory as opposed to keeping you in an area where you're constantly threatened by AI. And then finally, the ninth prediction is that companies will continue to search for their unicorn amid an employers market. That should say employers market, not employees. And so as we head into year number 3 of tech struggles, with a potential caveat of tech improving, companies are going to look for more unicorns over general fits. And so one of the unfortunate things about this kind of market is that it's incredibly tough to make a career transition, especially if you're in tech. You're going to have a lot of people competing against you in a role that potentially they have much more experience than you in, even if you have the hunger and desire to learn. And companies want their employees to hit the ground running. And so they're going to look for that unicorn who can do the jobs of 3 or 4 people. And that's just kind of the state that we're in now. And so when it comes to doing things, answering questions and doing the homework will be crucial to getting the job. And so, what does that mean about the job market? How does it change things along the way? If you have waited this long, 41 minutes in, we're going to get into that right now so that you can leave and get into your 2025 job market and do a great job. We have a question here. Can you elaborate on what you mean by the job seeking approach to take if you're a writer and have to face the reality that due to AI, your job may become a commodity? Yeah, so if your job can be done by AI and if your job can be repeatable or a job that can be done by somebody internationally for a whole lot less, that's where I consider your job a commodity because you're something that is very much available and also a job that can be taken away if a company feels like you're too expensive. So one of the things that I would say has held over from the COVID days is that once companies figured out that they could hire anyone around the world and that time zones potentially were not an issue, um, if you had a software engineer in the United States who was making $125,000, but you could get that same software engineer for $35,000 in Romania, you took that $90,000 difference and you reinvested it back to the business that way. And so, and so for like a content writer, for example, you're going to be in threat for that because if you have somebody who can work in a much cheaper place, understands English very well, and can manage ChatGPT and write, and they can pay this person a quarter of what they're paying you, then your job in my mind is under threat. Similarly with, I would say, the state of the project with the state of the project management industry, that's harder because that's a very people-oriented job. I think that um, in the corporate world, we're all project managers. Um, in the world that we're all project managers, the individualized project manager role may or may not be all that needed, depending on the size of the company that you work in. And then in regards to the risk of content marketing or a content writer, To combat that, it's to become a strategic thinker. So not only would you be able to know how to write, but you're going to have to also know how to use your writing in a strategic manner within your company. So whereas your Romanian writer can use ChatGPT, they may not necessarily know that you write a certain blog post or you put together a certain piece of collateral and you place it in a certain area of your website, or you guest author for another website so that you can get more clicks and views. But you, if you're a strategic thinker, can understand and know how to do that and set yourself apart because it makes you a whole lot more stronger as a leader. Awesome, cool. I'm glad to hear that I am aligned with what others have been saying. How will the EV and green job market be affected, and what are your thoughts? So, as I had said earlier, with electric vehicle credits ending and a focus on the EPA into less of an emphasis, I would say that finding jobs in those areas are going to be really tough in the next few years. Um, and I'm going to imagine that a lot of investments that companies have made into EV companies to maybe go against a Tesla or something are going to have a lot of hard time finding buyers, only because you're going to see policies that don't necessarily support that. And so, as I had mentioned, going into a nonprofit might be helpful because you're going to get people who want to donate to those causes that are interesting, but not necessarily make as much money down that line. Um, PM jobs in the medical devices and pharmacy industry. I would say less so because medicine and pharmaceuticals are different by every country, and every country has different laws and also focuses. And because those are very technical jobs, I would say less so as a commodity and more so as very much a specialty. What about a potential impact of increased government subsidies to industries like oil and big agriculture, which will probably go up? Yeah, so as I mentioned, one of the industries that will probably increase in size and really do well is oil. I think big agriculture is going to do really well too, depending, of course, on the tariffs that we see. So, looking ahead, if you want to go work in oil and gas, there's a lot of opportunity there. And if you want to go work for a big farm, or if you want to go work in agricultural areas, those will be great opportunities as well. Um, let's see. My job search experience in 2024 is that hiring managers are looking for someone who has only done a specific thing. Yep. They have not been interested in something who can do many things or unicorns in high tech. Are you seeing that signs of that changing? I am not seeing signs of that changing in 2025, unfortunately. I think we're going to continue seeing that because companies need to keep things tight as interest rates remain high, as inflation remains elevated, and as companies look for very, very specific things. How will the software engineer and developer jobs be affected in general? I can see that GPT can write a perfect small apps program and can guide people with no skills in software development to make a program comprehensively. So this one has been highly debated. There's a lot of companies that have that at that level have really um, there's been a lot of commentary around how the software engineering job may be very well dead in the next year to year and a half. Now, I don't know whether that is necessarily true, but I know that if you're an entry-level software engineer, jobs are really, really, really tough to come by. And so I would say that um, if you're an entry level engineer, make sure that you're very, very good and that you know all of your answers to technical questions that you're asked, and that you can stand above the rest when it comes to that. Would you suggest a change from a software development because this job can be done remotely? Yeah, possibly. You just have to be really, really, really good in the industries where the jobs are a commodity. Otherwise, it may be time to consider something else. Cybersecurity is something that will definitely grow in the next few years as well. Okay, so we're not even halfway through the slides yet, so I'm going to power my way through the rest of this presentation. Melissa, I do see your question on how to make your job applications stand out. Hopefully, my next few slides will answer that. If I don't get to it, we will please remind me and we'll answer that as we get through. So, understanding what's ahead is that it's still the toughest job market since 2008, and it might get harder with the hardest competition that you may ever see. Some industries are faring better than others, like AI and healthcare. Government is probably going to make its way off this list soon, depending on whatever part of the government you're in. It's important to not be hard on yourself. I know that it's really, really easy to do that right now because you might be getting a lot of rejections and things may be changing. But you have to keep pressing forward. Look for opportunities in unlikely places. And that while interest rates continue to come down, investments and subsequent hiring may be another 6 months out. So we're going to see where that all stands in a little bit here. And so we're going to give you 10 to 11 steps on how the strategies and the ways of things to stand out have changed, right? So that's number one is to actually understand the strategies. We spent the first 28 slides on really how the world has changed. And so this is really the most important one. Um, and it's that industry trends matter as you look at the market. Being first to a job listing does play to your advantage. And more important, it is important to know the people who are within particular industries so that you can make your way in. That's why I encourage each and every one of you to use this webinar chat, share your LinkedIn profile, network with each other because you never know who you might meet. And especially if you're in the same town or even, it doesn't really matter whether you're in the same town or in the same country or even a different country. Get on a Zoom call, talk to each other so that you can ultimately see if you can help each other. And so how do you do that? You can do that by filtering through what you want. And so one of the ways to do that is by networking and going into your LinkedIn and searching by way of your first, second, and third degree connections through your location, current company, education, and any other related areas that can work together. Commonalities are incredibly important, such as mutual connections, being alumni to the same company or to the same school, are going to be very, really big because that's what keeps conversation rich and also relatable. Step number two is to invest in yourself. Obviously, right, you have imposter syndrome because we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome because we're not sure that we can do it. But it's important to invest in education and projects. View yourself as a startup ready to launch and network in the right communities. One of the things I would also add here that I added on a later slide is to also invest in things like AI. Learn the new emerging technology. ChatGPT is 20 bucks a month. There are some tools that are cheaper than that. And you can also use ChatGPT for free. And so those are all things that you can do to stand out and be a really attractive candidate. Step number three is to build your personal brand. As I always say when it comes to networking, is that it's not who you know or what you know, but it's who knows you. If people know that you're somebody who is a product marketer or somebody who's a job search person like me, you're always getting requests from people for help or requests from people for figuring out what it is that they need to do in order to improve their standing in life or really for job search skills. You can build your credibility and your recognition through the things that you write on LinkedIn. And you got to go where your audience is and network and meet people strategically, right? And so tonight you might be able to meet some people strategically. I see product designers, I see product consultants, potential security analysts, and so forth. And so take advantage of that. Even if you never buy a single thing from me, I want you to go out there and I want you to make sense of the people who are around you so that you can build a bigger community for yourself. Number three and a half is to not take a great resignation mindset into a return to office world. I would say that one of the things that I've encountered the most in the last couple of years that has been big is that there are people who are incredibly picky about their jobs. And yes, uh, we all really enjoyed working remotely. I still work remotely, thankfully, but not a lot of companies are working remotely anymore. And so, because a lot of companies need to recoup their commercial real estate costs, or because they want greater control, they have decided to implement a return to the office. And so if you have the skills that are good enough to return to get a job that is remote, fabulous. On the other hand, if you have to take a return to office job where you're in the office 3 to 5 times a week, do it because you need to move your career forward. And then when the market gets better again, maybe some of those remote jobs will return. Step four is to go on offense with your search. Do not be afraid to turn on those open to work settings. It is okay that you need to turn that on. I know there are a lot of job search folks who say not to turn it on, but closed mouths do not get fed. So if you need that attention, get that attention. Number two is to use the job search sites that best fit you. If you have job search, if you have a job search that may not be best connected on LinkedIn, but best done on a website that closely matches your industry, then you should definitely do that. Number three is to understand that opportunities can come from unlikely places. You might be in a Zoom chat tonight with a recruiter that helps you get your next job. Or you may be in a LinkedIn group with somebody who knows exactly what they need, and that person is you. And so you sometimes need to find yourself in different rooms than where you've been, different places than what you're used to get opportunities that you never thought you'd have. I found my last job on Albert's List, and I found jobs before on Albert's List before. And so these are not places that if you asked me 15 years ago where I'd find a job that I'd say, yeah, I'll land my next career through a Facebook group. But inevitably, sometimes it happens. And then number four, find an accountability partner. With a lot of Albert's List programs, we've had a lot of accountability programs, a lot of boot camp programs, some of which have continued to meet after the program has been over. And some of those folks are in this webinar chat tonight and can probably speak a little bit to that. Oh, wow, amazing. We have the co-president of the NYU Alumni Club in Austin. Okay, all right. So if you went to NYU, Connie C is the person to connect with because she went to your university and she knows a few people because she's also a leader somewhere. So go and connect with her. Step number five is to tell the story that you want heard. From building a resume to doing interview answers, you do have control over the kind of questions and answers that you want to be able to get asked of you and answer during the interview process. It's important to be consistent with your message to the world, and I invite you to practice, practice, practice. And one of the ways that we can do this is to look at my own resume, for example, right? We all have an order where you start by introducing yourself, you share the highlights of your career, you explain how you got those highlights, you go into detail, and then you share your education and certifications. And so you see my email up there, you see my phone number. If you're interested in getting this resume for yourself, which has gotten me, I think, at least 40 job offers over the last three job searches, please reach out. I'm happy to send this to you. I'm going to go ahead and give you my email in the webinar chat, and you can email it. And I'm expecting all of you to send me an email here within the next 10 to 15 minutes. All right. So, with that said, step number six is to interview with confidence. You have to know what's at stake. You have to know what creates risk for you in your profile and know how to create excitement instead and to be very familiar with your star stories. You have to approach your interview with the requisite structure so that you can position yourself as the best candidate possible. And also share your special sauce while you're at it. And so, one of the things that that could look like is an understanding of how your work fits within everybody else's work. And when you are at a company, no matter what the size is, there is always something at stake because otherwise a company would not hire you in the first place if that were the situation. So, when you work anywhere, there is something at stake with the industry, the company you work with, your colleagues, your boss, and your customers. And I may do an interviewing workshop on this a little bit later in the year, but this is the one that is incredibly important to understand along the way. Understanding the types of interview questions that you get are going to be important too. You'll get everything from fact-based to situational to hypothetical questions that really test your mettle and what it is that you know. And if you don't know those interview questions today, those are going to hurt you along the way because you're going to give very unstructured and disorganized answers that don't tell the story that you have and don't paint you in the best light possible. And the worst thing that you can do during the interview process is selling yourself short. Well, we have a system engineer with strong experience in Microsoft. See, there's a lot of really fantastic people in this webinar chat. So connect with them, talk to one another, and come back in a few months in another webinar, and I want to see how well you're all doing. Step number 7 is to turn your job searching into a habit. A lot of us maybe wake up in the morning and think we'll job hunt today, and then tomorrow we'll go on a hike, and then the next day maybe we'll sleep in. The thing about a job hunt is that you have to do it every single day. You have to be up early, you have to be consistent, and you have to be flexible, but also unwilling to sacrifice for the things that you don't really want. And it's okay to take a contract as a bridge. So if you're going to take a contract for the next 6 months to a year because you haven't found anything for the last 3 months, absolutely do it. Contracts can end at any time, full-time jobs can end at any time, but the most important currency that you can have is to get experience. Step number 8 is exactly what we're doing here tonight, is to help other people. It's a tough job market out there. But you know what? I built things like Albert's List because I want to build a community of job seekers who can help and support each other. Um, I want to build a community where you can all network and share listings and boost each other's LinkedIn posts so that you can get to a place where we can all be in that type of mindset where you never have to work as hard as you have over the last 6 months to find a job. So, help each other out here in the webinar chat, help each other offline, help each other on my Facebook group. And if you end up joining one of our boot camps, help each other off of that as well. Step number 9 is to understand that it's hard out there. It's not a friendly economy for a lot of those in this audience, especially if you're in tech. Competition is fierce, and so you got to do to focus on the details and stand out. Spelling errors are bad. Watch for your spelling errors. Interview answers that don't hit the mark are not going to help you get hired. Network well and ask people for their time and be kind to them. And if you ultimately have to take a break and then come back, do that too. And know that in the longer run, it will improve. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to take to improve, but I think we've gone through the worst of the worst and we can come back from it and we'll all be in a much better place. Step number 10 is to borrow AI for help. Free tools like Claude and ChatGPT can support your efforts, and it's important for you to revise after the fact. You use words like act as if. For example, in this one, act as if I'm a job seeker looking for a job. I've applied for a product marketing manager at eBay. Draft an introductory message to the recruiter in under 150 words to help me out, right? So all of those things are key to being able to stand out and be well. Okay, and so these are some of the tools that are along the way. I'll have a slide deck for you after this webinar, but these include ChatGPT, they include Claude, Lazy Apply, TealHQ, Interview Warmup, ChatGPT again, Star Method Coach, and so forth. And so we'll go back through some of these in case you wanted to look at them again. So hopefully, Melissa, that answers your question about how your job applications, how you can stand out in the job application process. How about C-suite and executives? We'll be seeing lower salaries for them and fewer executives. God, I wish. I don't think we're going to see that, unfortunately. I think that executives, especially through tough economic times, are going to be expected to deliver. And even of the ones who do not deliver are probably still going to make a lot of money along the way. So, not quite yet. How do you balance being a job seeker and trying to get small consulting gigs? Yeah, that's a really great question. I think if I think you can frame those consulting gigs as potential contracts that could lead to something more down the line, depending on the conversation that you're having. So if you want to speak to job seekers, or rather, if you want to speak to hiring entities, then I think that's one direction. And I think if you want to speak to consulting that could become more, then you frame it that way too. And depending on the working relationship, maybe you build something more from there. All right, cool. So we'll go to that one. And then step number 11 is to become well versed in AI. I know I mentioned this earlier in one of them in becoming skilled, but becoming well versed in AI is incredibly important too, because, ultimately AI may not take your job, but somebody who knows it may very well do so. So it's important to spend time learning how to become an AI operator and apply that into projects. And we'll have a couple of opportunities for you when it comes to that as well. So, what to do once you've been hired? You've gotten the job, the new job is a beginning, but it's not the time to rest. It is the time to keep going. You showed your hiring manager that you had potential, and now it's time to perform. And while you're in there, what you also need to continue doing is you need to continue creating goals, whether it's learning new skills, building AI, growing communication skills, or in earning increased duties along the way. There's a lot of opportunity in any job that you go to, even if it's a contract, to do really important work and take advantage of that work into going into the next thing that you want to do. Some things to also keep in mind is that a new job is rarely forever. So keep building your network, keep coming to these webinars because you're going to meet new people, and keep writing down your accomplishments. Stay in touch with those old recruiters, stay in touch with the people whom you networked on your way up, because invariably we're also all coming on our way down at some point too. And so we've come to the last part of our slides. And my invitation is that, you've learned everything that you've learned, and it's also time to take action, right? We're all learners here. We've all invested the hour here, and I appreciate it so much. And I want each and every one of you to also take your learnings further and do more with what you have in front of you. And so, what does this mean? Number one is to DIY your job hunt with a job seeker survival kit that we've updated. The Job Seeker Survival Kit is a collection of webinars that we've held over the past 5 years that range in everything from overcoming imposter syndrome to using AI to your job search to what to do once you get hired, as well as mock interviews that include marketing, administrative assistance, software engineering, and product management. If you uh, if you point your phone to the left-hand side, you can get your kit today for just $27, and we're hosting this discount until the middle of next month. So I want to make it affordable for all of you as you go through your job search to have something that you can use and be your companion as you look for your next job. We also have office hours. And so office hours is a unique offering that we do. It is something that we host every other week on Zoom with yours truly. It is $20 for the entire year. And you can come on Zoom and you can ask all the questions you want about job hunting. You can vent. You can ask me to read your resume and give you feedback live. And it's the best $20 that you will spend all year. I guarantee it, or your money back. So sign up for either of these, point your QR code, and we'll also have these when I send you the presentation deck. I also want to invite you to sign up for a mock interview with Albert's List. We've done 114 of these since the start of the pandemic over 4 years, and it features a Fortune 500 recruiter for the non-technical webinars and a senior software engineer who has worked at companies like DoorDash and IBM for the technical webinars. And it's a chance to practice before the real thing. We all want to be here for the gym. We all want to practice, and we all want to make sense of um, being able to answer questions correctly. And so this QR code here sends you to the next one that we're going to do on Wednesday, which features a demand generation manager. You're invited to come in, ask your questions, um, and also watch the other person get interviewed and get an idea of what the interview process is like. It's also important for you to be informed of the market. So as you saw early on in this webinar, we were talking through a lot of economic trends. And we have an economics professor who comes and speaks to us on a monthly basis about the state of the economy, Dr. Riley White, who is a finance professor at the University of New Mexico. Every month, you learn about the trends moving the job market, including inflation, investments, and recession fears. And he also answers all of your questions on a regular basis as well. So come in, sign up, come in with your questions, enjoy an hour and a half of entertainment and educational entertainment, especially. And so what you're going to do is really do a lot of learning there. And, out of all of our webinars, we do not sell anything there. And yes, this session is being recorded and there will eventually be a link to our YouTube channel. I also want to invite you to join our Winter 2025 Job Seeker Bootcamp, with previews happening on January 22nd and 29th, with the bootcamp on February 3rd. So this is our twice yearly bootcamp that we hold that's 8 weeks long that gives you the accountability and skills resources that you need for a successful 2025 job search. And so we cover topics from job interviewing to negotiation, personal branding, resume writing, LinkedIn profiles, job hunt resources, and more. And so, if you join your current cohort and meet other career coaches to help you along the way or get one-on-one help, it's going to help your job search significantly. So, if you want to learn more about this, sign up for How to Recession Proof Your Job Search on Wednesday, January 22nd. Second to last, I want to invite you to pick up AI skills with our webinars happening this coming Monday, January 13th and February 13th. Learn AI skills using tools like Replete and how to prompt a website, and apply those skills into your own industry and knowledge. Learning how to prompt is incredibly important these days. And so if you point your QR code, it is to sign up for an event called How to Build AI Skills for Your Career. So I encourage you to sign up for this. There is a learning platform that we also promote at this particular webinar, and that will help you lead into the next thing that we have. And then finally, I want to help you transition out of tech. For those of you who are sick and tired of the technology rat race and want to do something else, we have a panel on January 16th called Is It Time to Quit Tech in 2025? Discover Other Careers Worth a Look. This is a webinar that is going to feature ex-tech workers, including a data analyst, a digital transformation consultant, data engineer, social media manager, and customer success manager. And they're going to talk to you about how they quit tech and what they do instead now, and whether it is better to stay or better to go, and what it is that's different about their new careers that you should be aware of so that you are able to make that transition and transition easily. So sign up for that webinar with this QR code, and we're going to have these in all of the decks that we send afterwards so that you can RSVP your way through it. And finally, I want to invite you all to stay in touch, right? You can connect with me on LinkedIn here. It is the second QR code down. The top QR code is joining Albert's Job Listings and Referrals, San Francisco Bay Area, where we have 50,400 people waiting to meet you and network with you and answer any advice you have or make their connections with you. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel where this video will be stored here in a couple of hours. We have 1,700 subscribers over there, and we post videos there every single week. And if you decide to connect with me in any of these channels, let me know that you discovered me or the community through this particular webinar. And so with that, I want to give time for Q&A. I also want to thank all of you for sticking it out for the last 72 minutes. Your time is always appreciated. I try to never take it for granted. And if you have any questions, I will take them now, or we can take them offline. All right. Well, we have no questions that have come in. We've answered them all in the Q&A. Uh, and with that said, oh, one sec, you have a question. Would careers like cybersecurity analysts be replaced by AI? Could you please suggest me how to find a career fair in my city like Toronto? Um, I don't know that cybersecurity would be replaced fully by AI because there are always new threats coming. Um, and I would say to find a career fair in your city, I would look at Meetup. Um, I would look at Meetup. I would look at Eventbrite, and then I would just kind of Google for career fairs, especially at the companies that you want to go to. Should resumes still be one page? Resumes should be as long as they need to be, as long as they convey the point that they need to, so that you can articulate your value to a potential company. But I would also say that resumes don't need to be any more than 3 pages. Um, Can you talk again about data analyst jobs being taken over by AI? If it's a repeatable task and a task that can be done by somebody abroad without thinking strategically, then yes, I think then AI could possibly take it over, especially if you have patterns. What is the best way to show AI experience when our previous projects did not have this? Um, I would build something with AI on your own and document the process. So if you're using Replete to build an app, that's one way to do it. If you're using ChatGPT and you see a notable difference in your results, that's another way to do it. Is a QA software tester experience still valuable in the tech market in 2025? Not necessarily. Um, only because you have a lot of, only because that's also a job that can be automated by AI, I think, and automated in general. Let's see. Okay. Do you think about the replacement of medical device engineers by AI? I don't necessarily know if that'll happen, especially if you want to create something completely net new. AI is good for looking backwards, but if you're looking to look forwards, then it's going to be a lot difficult. For an IT job seeker, should you use an ATS resume? I would say yes, because you need to comma separate all your skills. Let's see. Do you have any idea where the best way to find a job as a medical device engineer? Um, I would say an idea. I never had to find one of those jobs. If somebody else knows where to find a medical device engineering job, not on LinkedIn, feel free to chime in. Do companies use Replete in their development processes? I think the smaller businesses would, the larger ones would not quite yet. Can you be more specific about strategic process if we, which we'll need if we have a commodity job? So, that's really the process of thinking like a leader, like management. I would say that if you have a commoditized job, to think about how your job affects the overall business and how you could use the processes of that job to impact the bottom line or to help streamline operations. So I used the content marketing example earlier, where if you're a content writer, becoming a content strategist is going to help you out a lot. If you're a data analyst, it is important for you to learn what it means to become a business analyst or a business strategist into how you use all that data to surface business insights and take those business insights into the business outcomes that your company wants. Um, I will be emailing the deck. Let's see. Please give any suggestions for how to change careers, like from software development to cybersecurity? I have four reputable cyber certifications in cybersecurity, but don't even get interviews due to lack of experience. So, I would say for you, because you're a software developer, look for informational interviews. Look for other software engineers who have done cybersecurity work and reach out to them and talk to them and see if they're willing to share with you how they made that transition. How do you think the data scientist job market will be in 2025? I think it'll be fantastic. I think that it's going to continue to be very, very strong because AI runs on a lot of data. And so, especially if you have a PhD or if you have a advanced degree, it's going to help you out a ton. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and keep the stay in touch slide here up as we answer more questions. And I'm going to go ahead and keep that here so that you can connect on LinkedIn, go to our YouTube, or go to our Facebook. We'll also have the slide up later as well. I think it may be possible to save the chat. I can go ahead and save the chat somewhere and send it to all of you. Do I think data analyst boot camps are helpful? I think they could be somewhat helpful, but I think it's also important to know what the outcomes are and know who you want to network with when you leave those boot camps. Excellent. So we're now about an hour and 18 minutes through to the hour. I want to once again thank you for all your time. I invite you to keep in touch, whether it's through the job search community that I have, Albert's List, on LinkedIn, or through the YouTube channel. We have a lot more events going on our Eventbrite page, including some of the many events that I mentioned over the last couple of slides. If you have any questions, I am always available for answers. And I wish you the best of luck in your 2025 job search. And I look forward to seeing you all get hired soon and being successful in the year ahead. So without further ado, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. And I will see you all very soon. Bye bye.